Let's go.
I was in high school and I was really kind of taking some classes like in the medical field, like nursing, like co-op kind of stuff, because I really wanted to co-op my senior year. And so when I was getting into those classes, I really realized that I didn't want to be a medical doctor. There was way too much school involved in that. And so then I was like, well, I don't really want to do nurse work either, because I feel like I'm like kind of a go-fetch kind of person, and I feel like high-strung for that. So I really kind of started like Googling stuff, and I like found psychology, which I thought was super interesting. So I started my freshman year here at UK in psychology classes, and I really started recognizing that psychology was super interesting, and it was like a lot of the study of the brain, but I really wasn't very interested in testing, and I felt like psychology was a lot about testing. And so I took a social work class, an intro social work class at BCTC, and I really felt like I found my niche, because I was able not only to help people, but I was also to kind of able to do this holistic approach of being able to sit down and get to know them, change their life, and change their families' lives. And it kind of just ripples out to this like community. And it's kind of was just something that I really felt I could be good at. And that's kind of how I ended up in social work. My senior year, I did a field placement at the Chrysalis house, and I absolutely 100% fell in love with Chrysalis house. I knew that that was kind of where I needed to be, was working with women who were recovering from drugs and alcohol. So the end of my placement was in August, and I kind of looked at the director, Dr. Carmela Yates, and I was like, I'm not going to leave. I was like, I will stay volunteering until you hire me. And she was like, well, that might be a while. And I was like, that's okay. So like I would come over like after class, I'd park there at Chrysalis house, walk to class, and come back, and I would just answer phones for them and just do volunteer work for like 3 to 5 hours a week, you know, just answering phones and putting people on the waiting list and helping managing their waiting list and stuff. And finally, after 2 months, she realized I wasn't going to go anywhere. So she called me in actually on my birthday and was like, we're going to create a position for you. Are you interested? You're not going to actually get to do anything in the field that you're going into. She's like, but it's an entry-level position. You'll manage our whole entire waiting list. You've actually done a really great job. I revamped their whole entire list and how they managed it and stuff. And she's like, you did such a great job with that. We want to actually hire you to do that. And I was like, I will do whatever, just give me a job. And so I actually did the waiting list there at Chrysalis house for almost a year and a half. And I went into grad school, and after grad school, they offered me a case management position. And so it still wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but so I kind of paid my dues. I did another year in case management, and then I went and finally got my first real therapeutic job, and I got to do play therapy. And work with the women in outpatient who kind of had gone through the inpatient part and moved out. So I did that for 2 years, and then I got asked to do the domestic violence coordinator position. So I did domestic violence advocacy for a year, and then I ended up going into the actual residential part and working with the women there in the residential part until it kind of came to a place where I felt like I'd kind of grown up there at Chrysalis house. I'd been there for 7.5 years, and I'd really had some amazing opportunities to kind of grow as a social worker. And, you know, I got my license, and I really felt that like it was kind of at this place where I didn't feel like I was growing anymore, and I was getting a little crispy. I felt like I'd kind of given a lot, and it was time for me to find something where I could continue to grow and continue to feel like I was thriving, because that kind of residential treatment's really hard, and I really felt that like it was kind of starting to wear on me. So I started looking for a job, and I ended up finding a job at hospice on the weekends. And so I worked at the University of Kentucky Hospital on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays doing hospice care there. And so it was way different than, you know, what I kind of thought hospice was gonna be, because it was with the patients who really were kind of at the very end of their life. Most of my patients only lived usually 3 to 5 days, sometimes 24 hours. So it was really kind of challenging for me, because when I took the job, I was like really scared of death, like so scared of death. And that's why I wanted to take it, because I was like, okay, I'm looking for something new, I'm looking for something to challenge me, and this scares me, so this is going to be challenging for me. And so I took that job and ended up being there for 6 months, and that was when hospice was having all their turnover and stuff. So I got a little bit scared that since I was in that part-time position, so I kept kind of looking for a job and ended up interviewing at University of Kentucky Hospital for a job in pediatrics, and it was I made it to the final 2, and they called me and they're like, we really love you and we really like you, but we can't hire you because someone else wants you. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And they're like, well, there's a position coming open in 2 months. We can't tell you anything about it, but just apply for it, and we will send you emails to let you know when it's coming open. And I was like, okay. So it was like this huge leap of faith for me to kind of be like, okay, I've just got to be patient. I'm a pretty religious person. I was like, God has a plan for me. I've just got to kind of, put my faith in him and kind of roll with that. And lo and behold, 2 months later, I got a call from Elizabeth Johnson in adolescent medicine being like, we have a position coming open. I was in your interview. We would love for you to apply. And I was like, okay. So I've been there ever since. I'm going on 5 years at adolescent medicine. It's really something I never thought I would do, working with teenagers. I always saw myself with working with adults, but it has definitely been an amazing journey working with teens. I do individual therapy with the teenagers from 10 to 25, and then I also kind of do some family therapy with their parents. Obviously, change isn't going to occur just working with the teenagers, so we try to include the families as much as we can and as much as the teens will allow us. And I also do a group therapy there for dialectical behavior therapy for teenagers. What I really like is I get to kind of be a part of people's journey. Like, there's something really powerful about getting to walk side by side with people. Like, when I first started this, it was kind of just so the interest of getting to diagnose and, getting to work with people and that kind of stuff. But the more I really grew as a social worker, I realized what a privilege it was to get to be in some of these people's deepest, darkest moments of their life and kind of let them know that it's going to be okay and that there's another side to that. And that's been a huge privilege for me to be able to do that. The things that I dislike is sometimes the laws and the regulations that really keep me, I feel like, from being able to get services to my patients. I think that's the biggest frustration, especially now in the medical care. A lot of times, the insurance and that kind of stuff, it really keeps us from being able to help these families, and that's really kind of hard. On really tough days, I will blare my music and sing all the way home. And that's something that I've learned really helps me. I just tunnel in and focus on it. When I get home, my husband has really gotten to a place of recognizing if I've had a bad day, I walk in and I don't really talk, and he's like, okay, she needs an hour to herself. So I'll just kind of throw myself into cooking dinner, I clean the house, and then after my son goes to bed, I really just get a good book out and I just throw myself into reading. That's something else that I found that works really good. I'm really big about kind of praying is a huge thing that I do. I run. I really enjoy music, like I talked about, so I listen to a lot of music. I dance around the house, even if it's just as simple as putting on Pandora and me and my 2-year-old dance around the house, waving our arms and that kind of stuff. I just try to have as much fun as I possibly can. And I feel like I've done a really good job of, through my journey, keeping in contact with a lot of the colleagues that I've had. And sometimes I'll just call them and be like, I have to talk about this because it's not working for me. And I also do supervision for people getting their LCSW. So that's been really helpful for me. Sometimes in supervision, I'll be like, okay, I've got a case for you guys. And I'll just talk through my case with my supervisees and get another person's point of view, which I feel like has been really helpful too. So I think the biggest thing for me is I've always worked full-time and gone to school. In grad school, it was really crazy how I made it through. I have no idea, because I worked 40 hours a week at Chrysalis house. I did my 20-hour practicum at night doing outpatient, and I drove to Louisville every Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. So the biggest advice I guess I can give is really just kind of do something that you love. If you're going to be working while you go to school, do something that you can kind of feel good about. If you choose a practicum or a placement, making sure it's a good fit. Don't just take a placement because they say, hey, we've got an opening. I feel like it's really you're interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. And so that's the biggest thing, is I think kind of just making sure that you do your homework on where you're going to do your placements at, because even though it's only 20 to 25 hours a week that you're going to be there, that's a lot of time if you think about it. And if you are already bogged down with school and you're working, then you're not really going to put your whole heart into it and get something out of it. So I think that's something that I was really thankful for, that I got my placement at Chrysalis House, that I really enjoyed the work that I got to do. Obviously, I didn't want to leave. But and then transitioning on into the field is kind of making sure that you are meeting people out there in the field and letting them know what you're interested in and getting references, and even if it's just kind of you going and volunteering for a couple hours, if you're interested in doing hospice, go to their events. If you're interested in working with adolescents, get out there and go do some things with the adolescents world. The biggest thing is I have a student who wants to do work with the HANDS program. So I connected her with one of my former students, and I was like, you should go and shadow her for a day. Go interview her, making sure that's what you want to do. So I know not everybody's as fortunate as I am to find their job doing their placement, but I always recommend getting connected, because the more people you know, the more likely you are to find something you really enjoy to do for the rest of your life. I think the biggest thing with social work is just to kind of remember that, just because you are doing something and you get burnout, don't just give up on social work. I feel like a lot of my friends have, through the journey of my 12 years of doing this job, I've seen a lot of social workers do something and get really burnt out and just give up and go back to school to do something else, and that kind of breaks my heart, because we kind of went into this thinking we're going to save the world. And just because we don't save the world, it doesn't mean that we're not making a difference. So I would really encourage people that if you get burnout, try something different. Go into a different part of social work. If you've done residential, try outpatient. If you did outpatient, try, case management. I mean, everybody has a different niche. I think that's the beauty about being a social worker, is we're never pigeonholed into kind of being behind a desk or being out in the field. We can try so many different amazing things. So just because you get a little crispy, don't give up.
Yeah.
Try something different.